What's up, you guys? It's KeAmber Vaughn, aka CoachKe, coming back to you with another video. If you are new to my channel, welcome, and if you're not new, welcome back. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and also tap the bell so that you are notified of every new video that I post. So as you guys can tell by the title of this video, I am finally revealing the F That Budget version of my income allocation method. So some of you guys may not know that this was coming out, but I did ask a couple of people in my Facebook budget group, which I am not very active in just yet. I'm still really trying to figure out how best to help you guys in that group. I don't know, but I'll be figuring it out soon. I'm kind of all over the place right now, getting a bunch of stuff together. But I did ask if anyone was interested in me showing how to use my income allocation method without the meticulous budgeting, I guess, methods that you see me doing here on YouTube, and the general consensus was yes. So outside of that, the second reason why I wanted to put this video out is because there's a huge misconception and it's really not the people who support my channel, it's people who don't. But I've seen several comments on some of my videos, like the 4 reasons why I don't follow Dave Ramsey, debt-free, no thanks to Dave Ramsey. Another one is the I saved $10,000 in 10 months video. And I think there's another one where people are like, but you're still budgeting. Yeah, I am now, what you see on YouTube, but prior to coming to YouTube, I used my income allocation method and I did not budget whatsoever, okay? Not at all. What you guys see me do now that I've put the method out there and how I determine what's my fixed expenses, what do I think my income is going to be? What do I think my variable expenses is going to be? And that helps me to determine my percentages. And it also helps me to determine when it's safe for me to start putting money towards savings and towards debt. What you see right there, that one little portion, that was all I used to do. After I did that at the beginning of the month, that was more like financial planning to me, because once I had those numbers set, that was it. It was no expense tracking, like none of that stuff. So what I do want to do is I want to show you guys how you can use my method without being very meticulous, because pretty much almost every budgeting method that's out there at this point, because most of them suggest that you track expenses and different things like that, it's going to be pretty meticulous. Now, I do have people that I know that are like, man, this is confusing. I'm not very good at math. Let me tell you guys something, and I just said this in my last video. I don't use a lot of hard math. Okay, it might look difficult because it's different, but I'm not asking you to take the square root of something or the circumference of this or that. It's simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And let me tell you something, money is math. Finance is math. If you cannot conquer math, you will never ever be able to conquer your finances. There has not been one person that I've ever met that has been very good with money who's horrible at math. It's literally no way for you to do it, okay? The two coincide together. So you have to figure out the best way for you to succeed with math so that you can succeed financially, because without it, you're not going to get there. Okay, let me just make that clear. So what I want to do is I want to go through several steps that I feel like is the best way for you to use my method without being very meticulous with your budgeting and still be very effective. So there are a couple of steps in here that I did not do before I got onto YouTube and into budgeting. And so the particular steps that I'm going to give you guys, I'm going to link up in the eye in the sky an example of each of these steps in different videos that I've put out there. So just check the eye in the sky when the video is over, take you a couple notes, whatever. But I'm going to say whether or not I used this before I started budgeting. And if I did not use it before budgeting, I'm going to tell you whether I recommend it or not. There's also going to be a couple of steps in there that I did before I started budgeting, and I'm going to tell you whether I recommend it or not, okay? So there's pretty much only going to be like 4 steps. That's it. So the first thing is this. It is doing a monthly layout. Similar to this, I will link up in the eye in the sky. This is my layout for June. Now, did I do this before budgeting? No. Do I recommend it? Yes. The reason being is because how I did things before budgeting is because I've always been very good with money, okay? When I graduated high school, within like a month after graduating high school, I bought a car almost $3,000 cash with no help, okay? And I didn't start working a job until the January before that May of me graduating. I've always saved money from birthday to birthday. I remember one time I bought like a $1,300 or $1,500 laptop, one of those ones that swivel down that you could write on. That was way back then, so they were much more expensive than they are now. And I didn't ask my parents for help. You know, I bought iPads, I bought computer games, I bought all of these different electronics, never asking my parents for help. Even while growing up, I would just save money from birthday to birthday, from Christmas to Christmas, you know, different things like that. And so I've always been good with money. So something like this was just like, well, what's the point? But most people are not like that. And that's the biggest thing. And why do I feel like my method is for everyone? I'm going to say no, because I will never ever feel like something is that generalized. Do I think it can help most people? Absolutely. Now, do I think that it can help most people in the way I used to do it before budgeting? No, because not everybody is good with money. You know what I mean? So a lot of people need those couple of extra steps of not necessarily being meticulous, but making sure that you are tracking certain things, because you aren't that great with money. You don't make very good money and finance decisions, if that makes sense. So the reason why I do recommend something like this is because one of the other things that I do now that I budget is doing this paycheck to paycheck budgeting, where I'm writing down what bills are coming out with which checks. Now, I don't think you should do this. If you want to say F that budget, you shouldn't do this. Okay? Not at all. But in you taking that away, at least with a monthly spread, you can say, hey, okay, well, I get paid on this day, and I know that these bills are coming out, and maybe I can see that, all right, I get paid twice a month. With this check, I have, let's say, 7 bills coming out. With this check, I only have 3. So that allows me to see that, hey, between this check and this check, I don't really need to be overspending, because I got to make sure I make this last, because when I get paid here, I don't have as many bills, and then I can have a little bit more freedom. So I think that seeing something at a glance on a monthly calendar, now you don't have to decorate it like I do. Shoot, this ain't even decorating. When you look at some people's monthly spreads, this is very basic. But you can at least have a calendar in which you just write down, this bill comes out this day, this is how much it is, so that you can see, all right, this week, this is what I have coming out. This week, this is what I have coming out. So that when things pop up or arise, your friends want to go out, you want to go to a birthday party, whatever, you know what you can and can't afford based on looking at your bills on this kind of spread. Okay? So step number 2 would be to do the actual income allocation method right before the month starts. What is that? That is this page of the planner where you guys see me break down this month's budget. And so in this, you are estimating your income, you are estimating or writing down what your bills should be, your fixed expenses for the month. You're also estimating your groceries, stuff like this. And then in doing that, and I will link up in the eye in the sky, me doing the June one. But in doing this, you're figuring out, okay, so after my income and after my fixed expenses, this is what I have left over. This is what I'm estimating that I should be spending on variable expenses. And so after that, I take a certain percentage of what I have left over after fixed expenses. So my income is this. I'm taking out fixed expenses. This is my net income. So kind of think about like your job paycheck. You got your gross income, you take out taxes, now you have your net income. That's what you have to spend. Think about it in this manner. I have my income, I subtract my fixed expenses, which is my taxes, and then I have my net income, and that is what I have for my everyday expenses, as well as saving, as well as getting out of debt. When most people do not budget in this manner, thinking about it in this manner, this is where they kind of get screwed up. The whole zero-based budget thing kind of scares me for some people who I watch on YouTube, because they go zero-based budget on paycheck to paycheck, which is not necessarily the best thing for you to do, because you don't know what's ahead of you. You only know in this paycheck, this is what I have coming out. And no, you always have to think about the month at a whole glance, which is why we take the entire income for the month, subtract the fixed expenses, and now we know what we have left over overall. So when we do that, you're going to take your net income, right? And we have what we budgeted. And we know now that, listen, I only need 30% for me this month. I only need 30% of my net income to cover all of my variable expenses. Everything after that can go to savings and debt. I'm not in debt, so it just goes to savings. But this is the thing. You can't just do it on, like, you can't say, oh, well, this paycheck, I have $700 left over, so I'm going to shoot all $700 of that as an extra debt payment, because guess what? We haven't thought about the very next check, right? So the income allocation method allows you to do everything for the entire month. That's why when you get paid, after you've earned enough to cover your expenses, from that point on, you allocate every single dollar. Right? So if my grandma gives me $20 and I'm on a 30-70 split, I'm going to split 30% of that to say in my checking, 70% goes to savings, period, because that is what I've already come up with. So if you need to see this more in depth, again, I'm going to put that up in the eye in the sky. But this part you have to do, because this is the method that we're talking about, okay? I did this before I started budgeting. I highly recommend it because it's the only way for you to do it. Now, I'm going to show you guys how these numbers don't matter once you figure this out in the that budget version, okay? So we did our monthly layout. We've now determined our percentages for the month. What's next? Well, next is only on paydays. So after payday, that's really it. So on payday, you're going to do what you guys see me do on this weekly allocations page. On payday, you're just going to write in what your paycheck is, and then we're going to break it down. So if you have not earned enough money to pay for your fixed expenses, which is your threshold, you are going to keep everything in your checking, okay? Because you have not earned enough to start spending yet. Now, does that mean, oh man, I can't go to the grocery store until I've earned enough to cover my bills? Absolutely not. Because guess what? Some of the bills ain't even until the end of the month. So you can still spend how you typically do. You just know it ain't safe for me to send money elsewhere outside of my checking until then. All right? So this is literally all you're going to do. This is what I was doing before I came to YouTube. So once I figured out, all right, well, 30% of this after I've covered my fixed expenses is 9, 11, 10. I'm going to keep this in my checking, right? And then the other $1809.95 out of my $2,700 check is going to savings. When I tell you guys I send it to savings right away, like as soon as I calculate this, it's gone. And when I was in debt, it was the same thing. So there's two different ways you can do it as far as debt goes. Either you can immediately call whatever company is with the debt that you are now focused on in your debt snowball or whatever, your debt freedom journey. You can call them, say, hey, I'm calling to make an extra payment. This is the amount. You can do it right away. Or the second option, which I've done both of them. So in the beginning of my journey, I just called right away, hey, I need to put an extra payment of $26.13. And when I tell you I did not play about the number of cents, I did not play, okay? And it was at one point where I think it was when I was on my car note, because my car note, even when I was sending in the extra payment, even when I would say I want principal only, I would have to call back in after the payment was applied for them to take the interest off. And I remember one time the lady was like, you do know it's only like 76 cents in interest, right? I was like, I understand that, but I said principal only. Why am I going to pay you extra interest for what? Like I'm playing by my money. But anyway, so you have that option. The second option is, especially if the due date of the item that you are now focused on in your debt, if the normal due date is later on in the month, what most companies will not allow you to do is make an interest only payment or an extra payment until the regular payment has come out. So you have two options. You can push that due date up a little bit so that you have more time in the month to make that extra payment, or you can keep the original due date. That's fine. But when you know here, so this week we have to send, let's say, $300 towards our debt, you can have a separate checking account or savings, doesn't matter, that you send this money to right away. Okay, so that's what I would do. Oh, I have to send $500 this week towards my debt. I'm going to use Zelle, transfer money from my Bank of America to my Ally, and then I'm going to put so when it transfers, it put it into my Ally checking, and then I'm going to transfer it from my Ally checking to this little holding savings, basically, where I only put money in here that I was holding for my debt payment. And then at the end of the month, after I've accumulated everything, I would just go ahead and call in, make that extra payment, and that was it. Okay, so that's what you're going to do. We got the monthly layout. We have doing the actual method where you determine your percentages, and then on payday, you're just going to do the weekly allocations part. Now, did I do this before YouTube? Absolutely. Is it recommended? Yes, because that's another core part of the method. And I used to do this on regular pieces of paper before I actually created this budget planner. And for me, I tried different budget planners, but it never really made sense because my method is so different than most budgets. So it just never made sense. And that's why I created it. So the fourth thing is expense tracking. Now, did I track my expenses before YouTube, before budgeting? No. Do I recommend it? Yes, because most people, again, are not very good with money. Now, do I think that you should track it in the meticulous way that you guys see me do on a weekly basis? Absolutely not. And in fact, what you guys are going to see me do on a weekly basis when I come out with the budget results every week, so you're not going to have to do it in different colors and track in different categories and nothing like that. So from now on, for just this month, every single Friday when you guys see me do the budget results at the end of the week, you're going to see two videos. You're going to see it my regular, everyday, way that you guys see all the time, and then you're going to see it in the F That Budget version. Now, I do believe you need to track expenses. That's just me. And again, you don't have to be very meticulous, but just wait for this weekend when you guys see that video come out, and you guys will see it's really not much, literally. But I do think you need to have that in the budget. And then the fifth thing is, and I'm only including this because you guys see me do this at the end of every month, is when you zero yourself back down. Did I do that before YouTube? Absolutely not. Do I recommend it? Absolutely not, especially while you're in debt. Now, you guys see me zero down to $4,000. Do I think that's okay? Yes, even if you are still in debt. But most people don't have that expendable income to keep in their checking. Like, they can't say, oh, she said 2 times worth the monthly expenses we should keep as a buffer in our account. All right, cool, let's transfer. No. Don't do that. So what I did before I got out of debt was basically nothing. So essentially, I'm overestimating my expenses, right? And I'm underestimating my income. So there's always going to be that bit of cushion, especially when I then don't spend as much as what I budget. So I naturally will always have this extra money that just kept accumulating in my account from month to month. So I would make my big debt payment at the end of the month, and then let's say I might have $800 left in my account, or the next month I might have $1,200 left in my account at the end of the month that I start with. That's what I used to do. And then over time, by the time I was out of debt, that's when I pretty much got to the point where now my base is $4,000 and I need to carry myself back down. The only reason I do that is because you guys can see my income for the most part stays pretty consistent at a certain amount, and I continue to overestimate my expenses because there might be a month where I go ham on spending. It just is what it is. I haven't had very many months where I've spent more than I've made. Most of the time when it's something like that, it's not that I spent more than I made. It's just after sending money to savings all month, now I have less money than what I've accumulated. So for example, I made $4,000. I sent $2,000 to savings, which leaves me with $2,000 for spending, but I spent $2,200. Well, I'm $200 over, but not really, because that $200 was just sent extra to my savings, if that makes sense. So what I would suggest is when you are doing this method and you have money left over, so let's say you started May off with a buffer of $1,000, and now at the end of May, you have $1,300 in your account because you've spent that much less because you didn't do a zero-based budget. I would suggest you stay at $1,300. That's your base for June, and you continue to do that until what you are left over at the end of the month and what you start with the following month is more than 2 to 3 times your monthly expenses. I've said this in videos before, but I learned from someone when I started learning about finance and stuff like that. You know, I was taught that the mini emergency fund was $3,000. I was taught that your true emergency fund is 6 months worth of expenses. Not no 3 to 6, it's 6 period. And then I was also taught, after I asked actually, because I was just like, hey, you know, you're telling me what I should save up, but what about my checking account? How do I know when I have too much in there? Well, that's when I was taught, keep 2 to 3 times your monthly expenses. I don't know if he meant fixed and variable. I don't really know. Don't matter. But $4,000 for me is very safe, right? And so even though my monthly expenses are like, what is it this month? This month it's about $1,700 for fixed and variable. Most months it's anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000. So it varies, right? But $4,000 is very safe for me. And I have a true emergency fund. I have a mini emergency fund. So those total out to $12,000. Then I have about another $13,000 in savings on top of that. So when I fall on hard times, I have to blow through $4,000 and then blow through another $20-something thousand before I'm just in a panic like, uh-oh. You know what I'm saying? So I would suggest 2 to 3 times your monthly expenses, and I would really suggest fixed expenses, because when it comes to things that are variable, when we are in a bind, it's easy for the average person to say, you know what, I gotta stop eating out this month, things are a little tight, or I need to buy foods that are a little bit cheaper just so I can make it through this month because next month it'll be better. That's why I go based on the fixed expenses, because even though you can skip a light bill or skip a car payment, you're gonna have late fees. It's gonna be on your credit, and I'm one of those people where I think credit is very important. So I would rather you do 2 to 3 times your fixed expenses. And guess what? As you get out of debt, that number is going to change, but you can choose a number that you feel comfortable with. Because even with housing expenses, my fixed expenses typically don't get past $1,500. Okay, so when it comes to that, I'm at 2 to 3 times. You know what I mean? Actually, yeah, 2 to 3 times my monthly expenses. And so, again, I did not zero down before budgeting. I don't recommend that you do it, but if you have more than 2 to 3 times your monthly expenses in your checking at the end of the month, I would say zero down to, like I do with $4,000. That extra money, if you are in debt, needs to be an extra debt payment. If you're not in debt anymore, it just goes to savings like you guys see me do every single week. So just to recap, and again, all of this is going to be in the eye in the sky. How do you do the F That Budget version of my income allocation method? Do a budget layout, please, because it's very important for you to see what bills come out where. Even when you're really good with money like I would have still liked to back then know when things were coming out. Number 2, doing the actual budget method where you estimate income, variable expenses, and all of that. Again, you will not really care about what you budgeted for groceries and stuff with this version of it, but you guys will see that on Friday. Number 3, on your paydays, make sure that you are calculating what you're sending where. And once you send it, you need to send it ASAP. If you have calculated that $300 goes to savings and $200 goes to debt this week, do it ASAP. Don't think about it. That way it's out of your account immediately and you will not accidentally spend the money. Number 4 is expense tracking, but not in the meticulous way that you guys see me do every week. Check that video out that's coming out Friday. And then number 5 is zeroing down once you get to where your base of your account is 2 to 3 times your fixed expenses on a monthly basis. And that is it. So again, you can do this without being meticulous. You guys see that in me telling you the list of things to do. You guys didn't hear me say do a paycheck to paycheck budget. You guys didn't hear me say, hey, do a weekly paycheck to paycheck budget. You didn't hear me say any of that. So it's not very meticulous. And again, if you are not good at math, figure out how to be. I don't care what you got to go look at YouTube videos, whatever. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. That's it. If you want to conquer your finances, you got to conquer basic math. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. Or you can private message me if it's private information that you don't want other people to see. You can private message me on Facebook or on Instagram, probably Facebook, because I just checked my Instagram this morning. I got like 10 messages there that I just forgot was even there. I don't really check Instagram like that. But if you guys have questions, leave them down below. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already. But other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.